They quoted a bank vice president who said that we take horses as collateral all the time. I think sometimes people imagine that the Amish are operating on some kind of like old world barter system. I think some people also may imagine that the Amish use only cash. So Amish do use banks, and they tend to favor their local institutions, the smaller kind of hometown banks. It's not like a cash economy. It's not a barter economy either. It'd be pretty inconvenient, right? If you think about it. If you need something simple like a gallon of milk or some ice cream, to come up with something to barter for that, it's not really going to work. Amish shop in stores, like we do. They go down to the Quickie Mart. They go to Walmart. They go to Costco. They go to grocery stores. They go to the Sharp Shopper, which is a discount grocery chain in Pennsylvania. And sure, there may be some cases where Amish trade things, but it's not like a common way that Amish do business, right? I mean, they're usually using dollars to purchase, right? Or Canadian dollars in Canada. They use checking accounts. They write checks a lot. I sold books to the Amish. I've had hundreds of Amish customers that bought from me. The vast majority of them paid with check. A few paid with cash, and there were some people that bought with credit cards as well. More Amish have gone into business, whereas in the past, Amish were primarily farmers. Furniture making, construction, these are pretty popular industries with the Amish. Some of them have generated a lot of wealth. I mean, there are definitely Amish millionaires and multimillionaires. You're not going to be able to as easily tell it or guess it or surmise it from the way they live, because they all kind of have the same buggies. I mean, some of them may have a little bit nicer features on their buggies. Some of them may have nicer homes. You may notice that. I guess the point is the Amish are pretty plugged into our economy. So they're using banks. They use banks for loans. They take out loans. The Amish are generally regarded as a pretty good bet for bankers. A couple of years ago, there was a really good piece written in Crane's Cleveland Business. They quoted a bank vice president in Ohio who said that we take horses as collateral all the time. And apparently, I learned from the article that actually goes against the practice that lenders are taught, which is never take anything which eats as collateral. But the Amish are judged to be a safe enough bet that they'll do that. This bank vice president, Thompson, said that if they offer you the horse, you take the horse. Okay, so that's their transportation after all. So it's a good point, right? So you'll see Amish at the bank. I've driven, my Amish friends to do bank business fairly often. You'll see a horse and buggy in the drive-through teller line. That's a pretty common sight in some Amish communities. Amish have even gotten involved in bank ownership. And in at least a couple occasions, there have been banks that were started with Amish founders. The most recent example of that is a bank called the Bank of Bird in Hand, which was started in Lancaster County in 2013. And at the time, it was at the first new bank opened in the U.S. in 3 years. This was after the whole banking lending crisis of the late 2000s. And according to an article in the Wall Street Journal, that Bank of Bird in Hand had amassed more than $60 million of loans in its first year in business. So the Amish will go to the bank for a loan to buy a home, to start a business, to buy a farm. Just like we do, the Amish have mortgages. Now, there are some Amish kind of like lending funds that Amish people, business people contribute to, often at low interest rates, to help young couples in their community get started with their first home or with their first business, those kinds of things. But Amish also go to commercial banks. Another one would be one bank president in this Crane's Cleveland Business article described it as a first horse and buggy loan. The Amish have a reputation for hard work and that they repay their debts. And that's something that definitely works in their favor and makes them attractive customers for banks. They also have the kind of the community support system that makes that even stronger in some sense. So it's almost like a backstop. Another interesting fact about Amish and banks, bankers will adapt by adjusting their business hours. The Amish farmers kind of keep different hours from most people, right? I mean, you got to get up at 4 a.m. to milk the cows. By 6 a.m., you're already going strong. So, they talk about, getting 5 a.m. phone calls or having a meeting at 7 p.m. because for a farmer, that would be after the evening milking. So that might be when they're, most available. Another thing that this article found, is that Amish lendees tend to pay off their debts fairly quickly. Paying off a 30-year mortgage in 20 years is pretty common. This Middlefield bank said that they'd had third and even fourth generation customers already from among the Amish. Kind of like a lot of things Amish, you tend to do kind of what your family does. There are, where do we bank as a family? Well, we go here. Well, I'll go there too. I mean, Dad liked it, Uncle Mervyn liked it, and, it must be good. Just to put a bow on it, the vice president of the bank I mentioned at the beginning added that he's never had to repossess a horse. So there you go. One little add-on to this, I couldn't resist, but there was a bizarre story that appeared in the New York Times in November of 1995. They reported on an unusual crime spree that had been taking place in the New Jersey, Newark area. He said that when the reports of a bank robbery in Wall Township came into the FBI office in Newark on October 25th, agents knew it was the same two men who had been robbing banks in central and southern New Jersey for 2 years. The men were efficient, aggressive, and disguised as Amish farmers. The last job, they had on what appeared to be fake beards, said Special Agent Ann Todd. They both had black hats with a small brim. They are very systematic. They do things the same when they do every job. Now you see what I'm talking about when I said bizarre story. Bank robbers dressing up as Amishmen. For some reason, at the time of the article, they had robbed 7 other banks. It turns out these 2 fake Amish bank robbers were quite successful at their trade, let's call it. In a series of 8 robberies, the men have taken more than $250,000. That is, quote unquote, an extraordinarily large amount of cash to obtain through bank robberies, Ms. Todd said. So these guys did pretty well dressed up as Amishmen robbing banks in New Jersey in the 90s. They would always remove the bank's surveillance tape, and of course this was the pre-digital era. All they showed in this New York Times article was a crude sort of sketch of the men. So how did the story end? I was not able to find any other reports besides this one on this fake Amish bank robbing pair. Really any information on whether these bank robbers were ever caught. The end of the article, kind of amusing here. Federal agents said they could not speculate about why the 2 men have chosen Amish-type clothing. There is no indication that they are from Pennsylvania. For bank robbery, it is not a very good disguise, Ms. Todd said. It's not like a ski mask or a gorilla mask, which covers your whole face. Okay. I don't know if that's humorous. I mean, it's bank robberies. I'm sure it wasn't humorous for the people involved. Looking back at it 25 years later, it's a bizarre story. And I thought I would throw that on here at the end for entertainment value, for maybe someone out there knows something about this, series of robberies and can help catch these guys with some information. I don't know. I'm putting out 2 videos per week. You can hit the subscribe button and that'll keep you in the loop on when the new ones come out. Thanks, and I will see you next time.